Hello, everybody. My name is Bill Schultz. Thanks, Beth, for that introduction. I am one of the three co-founders, Tyler here, Tyler Engel being one of the others, of AccessiMingos, which we're excited to talk to you about today. AccessiMingos is a supporters group, and we'll talk a little bit more about what supporters group actually means in just a second. But we consider ourselves a supporters group for a professional soccer team based out of Madison, Wisconsin called Forward Madison. And Tyler and I are something we're really proud of about AccessiMingos is that as far as we know, it is the first supporters group in North America that was created by disabled supporters for disabled supporters. So when we launched back in March of this year, we were just really excited to be able to just sort of get ourselves out there. But what we got was an actual really cool response, really from around the world, of folks who were excited that we'd sort of put this together. So before we talk exactly about who we are, let's talk a little bit about a supporters group and what that is and what that means. So supporters groups are independent, organized fan clubs is a way to think of it, or a group of people that support or cheer for a team, usually in soccer, or what the world calls football. Supporters groups are known for their fanatical, very vocal support. We do large group stuff like singing, chanting. We display large banners in the stadium. We wear hats that match our shirts on days that the team plays. We do all kinds of what some folks would consider fanatical things to support our team. Most supporters groups have some sort of governance structure. So you'll see on the right there some logos, and that's us over here, this cool little flamingo who looks like he's on wheels there. These four supporters groups, the AccessiMingos, Featherstone, Labara, and Mingo Ladies, sort of roll up under an umbrella group that we call the flock. Now, membership in these groups is a little ambiguous. Anybody can really be a member of any of these groups if they consider themselves one and want to participate in events or, just show up or be a part of any of the things that we do to support the team. But the flock is sort of the overall group of us that if you ever come to a game at Free Stevens Field in Madison, you'll see what we call the flock end, which is behind one of the goals. We're chanting, we're singing, we're banging the drums, and we're making a lot of noise to support our team. Within that, there's sort of these other groups that we pull ourselves out and we make a distinction amongst ourselves that we support different identities and cultures within that group. So for Tyler and I and our group, we're the AccessiMingos, and we support the folks, and we're there for the folks that have disabilities and want to participate in that. So here's an example of supporters groups. That picture on the bottom there, that's us. You can't really see Tyler there, but we're probably behind the horde of players, if I had to guess, because that's where we usually sit. Up above, you'll see some of the more professional, larger supporters groups, but that's kind of what we look like. Specifically to AccessiMingos, though, who are we and what do we do? So we have a mission and a few objectives. Our mission, we're an all-inclusive Forward Madison supporters group founded by and for disabled supporters. And that part's important, the by and for, because like I said earlier, we think we're the first supporters group in North America who fits that distinction. And we've had a number, Tyler, I don't even know how many, of other supporters groups or potential supporters groups for disabled folks reach out to us and say, hey, this is something we want to do and we're excited about. Can you help us? So Tyler, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've had 2 or 3 form within a month of us forming and reaching out and working with us. And then I have no idea how many of that have been reaching out to us and asking us about how do we do this, what do we need to do, and wanting to get this started.
Yeah, and it's one of the coolest. Sorry, Tyler. One of the coolest things I thought was that like they were some bigger clubs too, like Minnesota.
Yeah.
Our club that we support, Forward Madison, is plays in USL League One, which is like, if you think about the professional ranks, it's like a tier 3 club. Minnesota United is a professional sort of premier level team. So we are excited to have inspired their group as well.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to say about that, Tyler, before I didn't mean to talk over you?
No, yeah.
Okay. So our objectives are there's really four things that we as AccessiMingos focus on. Promotion and support of involvement of disabled supporters in the flock and its member SGs. So one of the SG is supporters group. So one thing that we get really excited about is bringing folks who've never been to see a soccer match live to actually come and experience a game in the stadium, usually in the flock end with us. And if you ever watch any of the coverage of the team, or you ever see any pictures like the one we showed earlier of after a goal is scored, Tyler and I and our co-founder Brian, we're usually right up in front, sitting there in our wheelchairs, cheering for the boys right behind the goal. And so there's really this environment in flock end that it's loud, it's exciting, it's flamboyant, it's proud, and it really is an experience you have to have yourself. So we'll talk a little bit more specific in a minute. Tyler will talk a little bit about what we've done to make that flock end accessible to disabled folks, but it's a big part of what we do, and maybe the biggest part of what we do, just really asking others with disabilities to come experience this thing that we love. Second, to advocate, help, and provide match day access to disabled supporters. So again, I kind of covered that, but do whatever we can to make that space accessible for you guys. And again, Tyler will talk about how we're doing that. To work in tandem with the flock and the other supporters groups, just to ensure accessibility of away day trips. One of the big pieces of being a soccer supporter, if you're really into it, you want to go take some trips and support your team when they play in other cities. We want to make sure that those experiences to travel with the group, with the flock, is accessible to people as well. And then lastly, to be the primary disabled supporters group in the Madison area. And we're a little bit unique in that we support really two teams. We're a Forward Madison supporters group, but we also support a power soccer team called the Wisconsin Warriors. And there's a little bit of overlap there. I happen to be the coach of that team. Tyler's one of the forwards. So we use our group and our exposure that AccessiMingos have to also sort of share share the excitement about the power soccer team that we play for. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute as well. This is a slide that I reused from somewhere else. It's not super important that you know what we do individually, but myself, Tyler, and our friend Brian there, that's me on the left, Brian's in the middle, and Tyler's on the right, just to kind of show you who we are. And we're the three individuals that came up with this group, and we meet once a week, and we do the various things that are that go along with running this group. In blue there are our Twitter handles if you wanted to get a hold of us. Those are in blue there, and we can provide those in the chat along with our email at the end. Tyler, I am going to hand this one over to you, and you just tag me back in when you want me.
Yeah, so throughout attending the events through 2019 and then finding out issues of how the stadium was not accessible, because it is 100 years old, the stadium, and a historical site, so they can't do a whole lot. But we have been able to make many changes to the stadium, where we let caregivers now let in for free. So if you need someone to be with you, that person lets in for free, because that's a huge barrier for most of us, having to pay essentially a double price to get into any event. There's fully accessible porta potties in the flat end where we sit usually with the other supporters. The concession and merch stands at the stadium now have a smooth path with a ramp, and staff are trained to assist us with whatever we need. We're working on away trips, making sure that buses to the other stadiums, and then on these stadiums, making sure that seating is appropriate, and with everyone else, we had this issue at the end of 2019 where the accessible seating was away from the rest of the our supporting group was, and the whole supporters group moved back 20-30 feet to sit with us because it just wasn't, they all thought it wasn't right that the other supporters were not being involved in the same atmosphere. We also have ASL interpreters for some chants and the national anthem before the matches. And then we've also raised over $12,000 for a wheelchair for the Wisconsin Warriors Power Soccer team for players, a player to play in. All right, Bill.
Got it. This was just, I don't know that we need to go over this slide. This was just kind of to show what a power wheelchair, a strike force wheelchair looks like for power soccer. We'll talk a little bit about the Wisconsin Warriors here, and just to give people an idea of the equipment that's used. I wanted to include this picture, and I had this slide. So that's kind of the chairs that we use. And then Tyler, please feel free to add anything to this. There you are in both these pictures, by the way. This is just, we talked about Wisconsin Warriors a little bit. This is another organization that Tyler and I participate in and are very passionate about. And AccessiMingos, one of the things that we want to do once our season, our competitive season really kicks off in January is work hard to get some fans in the stands for our power soccer games as well. Like any sports team, you know, the more fans in the stands wearing your shirts and supporting you and making noise, the better. So that picture on the left there is a good, that's from our last Madison tournament, and we were able to have quite a few fans turn out, which was really cool. Tyler talked a lot about the things that we've already accomplished as a supporters group and working with both the club and the flock as a whole. These here are some projects that we have either in flight or that we continue to work on. Some of, like the first two there, Tyler talked in detail about. We continue to try and make our accessibility features within the stadium and at away days better. We're not really satisfied. Like, we're very happy with what we've been able to accomplish, but I think there's other things we'd like to do. For instance, Tyler mentioned at an away game that he went to, that the whole group of supporters actually moved up to sit with the wheelchair users in the group because the seating wasn't accessible for them. One of the things that we'd like to do within our own stadium, because Tyler and I and our group of friends usually sit right at the front along the barricade, we like that. But we also want to make it accessible for folks to sit other places if they want to. And so because the flock primarily sits behind us in tall metal risers, we've talked a lot with the club and the flock about making a level or two of risers that would be accessible to folks with mobility impairment. So that's something we continue to work on. There's a lot more, Tyler. Yeah. I don't know if you want to, that's sort of the big one that I think about is just being able to give people multiple options for seating.
Yeah, that and that you have down below, we're working with other groups for people with sensory issues and making sure that they have an enjoyable experience at match days too, whether it's in headphones, using a suite with noise so it's less loud or whatever. We want to make sure it's for everyone, not just people with physical disabilities.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that we, you know, Tyler, Brian, and myself realize, you know, like we're three white dudes who use wheelchairs. It's easy for us to make a space physically accessible. Like, we understand that, but we've done a lot of research and we've tried really hard to partner with other groups in order to like start thinking about what can we do to make this space accessible for others that have different types of disabilities. And one of those things was like having a sign language interpreter on the capo stand, which is a huge one. But then how do we help neurodiverse supporters? How do we help visually impaired supporters get into the stadium and enjoy that experience? So one thing I feel like I should mention here, Tyler, is just that like Forward Madison as a club, like its owners and its leadership group, have just been, to me, incredibly impressive in what level of like engagement they've had with this and what they've not only allowed but like encouraged us to do. I mean, Tyler and I have a pretty clear line of communication with the team's COO. We're able to converse very freely with like the owners of the team. They're not only supportive but encouraging of us to like bring them more and be able to do more. So we're in a really cool and unique position, Ty, where we get to do this stuff, because in any other market with any other team, it might be very difficult. You might not have the support of the leadership. We do, and it's really cool, and it's gonna mean that some of the things we're able to create, like Tyler mentioned, a sensory suite, that would be the first of its kind in North America, and that would be pretty cool. That's more or less our presentation. I'm more than happy, Tyler and I are more than happy to answer questions, and we've got about 11 minutes left, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions.
Yeah, people can put them in the chat, or you can come off mute if you want and go ahead and ask your questions. I guess I have a question. I'm just curious how you guys, started the whole fundraising piece, and like, what were your strategies to get, the organization to adopt all the great things you did around accessibility? Because I know that probably cost them some money. So how'd you start those conversations?
So yeah, I mean, we reached out to the club after we formed, and it was kind of late, so we just had some basic asks, and they implemented everything immediately. I mean, there was cost, but on the business end, that you're adding 15 to 20% more people in the stands. The more people you have there, the more accessible events are, the more money you'll make from tickets and concessions and merch.
That's a great point. So basically, you feel like getting very concrete with what your asks were right away, like being very specific was a key to your success.
Yeah, being very specific and having strong reasoning behind it too. If I can't go somewhere without my pay order, I can't go, and if I can't afford it, I'm not going. If I can't get food and drink, I'm not going to buy anything there.
I think that's a really good. Sorry, Tyler, finish it.
Yeah, and I mean, we're lucky that the culture that we have in Madison is very supporting and will make it happen too. But yeah, go ahead, Bill.
No, I'm glad you made that point too, because that's one of the things too. We just got very lucky that like the folks that own the team and make the decisions are very, they're progressive. I mean, they're forward thinking. They want to include everybody that they can. But to Tyler's first point, I was just going to say that like that's a really good way when you think about advocacy, right? Like as a disabled person, like can you spin your advocacy so that it sounds like the accommodations you're asking for will benefit them in return, right? And if you think about that from the team's perspective or from any business's perspective, like, hey, if you make this space accessible to us, chances are we'll support it because it will be one of those spaces that we are able to, use barrier free. And also it's just the potential, the earning potential becomes that much more when you open yourselves up to be accessed by folks with disabilities. So I think that's a great point, Tyler. I probably didn't even, I mean, I didn't think of that.
I have a comment and a question. So first, thank you guys so much for this great presentation and all the incredible advocacy work you're doing. I think it is amazing and really happy to see this happening locally. And you talked a little bit about how you're the first group and that you know of in North America. I'm wondering, is that specific to soccer? Or is that across all sports? Because I feel like this is needed in every sports arena, in every sport across the globe. And, you know, when you think about, you know, rough estimate, 20% of the population has a disability, that's a huge market share that is being missed. And also just wondering like where the ADA laws come into place. Like, you know, so much of this you assume needs to be accessible, but really isn't fully accessible. I know there's a fine line between what ADA says is accessible and what's actually practically accessible, right?
Yeah.
But just curious kind of your thoughts on continuing this movement and really looking at legislative changes to not just make this, oh, this team is great and helping us, but this should be a requirement for all stadiums.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Saturday culture is different because the fans are more involved than other sports, but we would love to see this grow throughout, you know, the world and throughout every sport and stadium there is. And with the, you know, ADA regulations and all of that, at least I'm on the mindset that we don't care about the ADA. Like, the ADA is a bare bones minimum. We don't want to be at the very bottom of our industry. We want to be pushing the envelope and innovating and making things better. And then, I mean, maybe potentially going into policy with that too, and helping expand it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think when we think about supporters groups, we say we're the first one in North America, we mean soccer, just because supporters groups is kind of a different, you know, like you'll have fan clubs for teams, right? But it's much more organized. Like Tyler said, like there's just a lot, like the culture is different. The culture is different in soccer. You have like a very involved supporters group. Most teams of any size do. But yeah, like you know, you can go to any stadium in America and it's got to meet ADA requirements, right? Like that's the law. What we're trying to do is say like, you know, there's much more to making a space accessible than that. And I think, you know, it's as simple as like the, you know, anybody in this meeting could give 10 examples of where the ADA just falls short, right? Like, I've heard the term barrier free used a lot, right? Like, I don't know that we're there, but I know that's what we're aiming for. And that's how we like to think about it.
And then do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, it looks like there's somebody with a 5503.
Yeah.
If you wanted to ask your question.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, so I got a question about like, you know, like what are the supports if they need help with something, like what kind of supports would they need to do that?
You mean if you're like at a match and you need some help with something?
Yeah.
We haven't so far, and we've only been in existence since March. We don't have necessarily like, you know, we haven't gotten into the business yet of like providing caregivers or having anyone who's able to like help folks with, you know, whether it's eating or toileting or, you know, that kind of stuff. One of the ways that we thought up front that we could make those types of services accessible for folks was to do the free caregiver ticket. You know, so like if you have a caregiver that, you know, is around to help you, or a friend or a family member that can go to the match with you, you know, we can get them in the door for free. If you have specific requests, like we're all about that. You know, feel free to reach out to myself, to Tyler, to the AccessiMingos@gmail.com. And just like, you know, if there is a barrier for any of you individually to get to a match, please let us know and we'll do whatever we can to make it accessible. That's what we're here for.
And it's fun to problem solve. And if you have this issue, someone else does too.
For
And
sure.
we have a way to fix it then.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And then my other question was, as well, is that, like, you know, kind of like, you know, the support people that, kind of like the support people that, like, you know, can they like come to the games or do they not?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught the very end of your question. Does who come to the games?
What I was saying was, is that kind of like your support group come and cheer you on, or how's that work?
Does the support group cheer you on?
Yeah.
I'm just not sure I understand the question completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying is basically like, you know, kind of like your support group, like be there to cheer you on for like these games or stuff. And so
Yeah, I mean,
kinda
that's
like,
what it's all about, right? We're just trying to get more people to come out to the matches and support the team. That's what we started doing there. We just kind of found, you know, that we all have a lot of things in common and the same barriers. And so we're just trying to make that type of support more accessible for everybody, for sure.
so like how many people would you say would be coming there? What you say?
In general, like what's the crowd size?
Yeah.
So at a Forward Madison game, are you talking about
Great.
Forward Madison, like the big club?
Well, I'm
The
kind of
Forward,
talking about,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm kind of like talking about like anyone in general, as far as like who goes there and how many people go there and all that.
Yeah, a match. I mean, a stadium holds 5,000, I think.
Mhm.
Usually it's
Wow.
probably 2/3, half to 2/3 full. On a big match, we've filled it up.
Seems like a good amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is for a third division side. They're technically, you know, a lot of the teams we play are lucky if they have 50 people show up to a match. So we're very lucky there.
Hmm.
It's definitely really supportive for those people because they need the support. So that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are mainly my questions. But as well, the other part of my question too is like so like you know, I guess my next question is like how do they know like when they need help, like like when they need help with something, like like would they like ask you for that, or how would they do that with communicating?
Yeah, so if you want to come to a match and you think you might need some help while you're there, we have our email address here. I'm just gonna put it in here because I think there's a typo.
I put it in and I'll put it.
Okay, so if you scroll all the way up to the beginning of the chat, yeah, AccessiMingos with an S, right, Tyler?
Yes.
AccessiMingos with an S at gmail.com. And Tyler, Brian, or myself will respond to that and we'll get you what you need.
Yeah.
Great.
Uh,
Thanks
that's
to
all.
everyone. We're a couple minutes past time, but people can follow up with Bill and Tyler by email and get more information. I know the Madison soccer group has really gotten big in the last few years, so it's exciting to hear about. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
everyone.